How does a mother carry the weight of her heart when the very child she nursed, guided, and loved with every ounce of her being unknowingly brings home someone who sees him not as a treasure, but as prey? I asked myself this question on a cold evening in Boston, and the answer nearly broke me. My name is Rose. I am 67 years old, a widow and a mother. 4 years after my husband Martin passed away, my world was small. Just my little apartment in Beacon Hill, my quiet walks, my crossword puzzles, and the occasional phone call from my son David. He was my one bright light, the single reason I rose each morning with purpose. Losing Martin left an emptiness that never healed, but David's voice on the line kept me going. He is everything to me. So when he called one afternoon with excitement spilling from every word, telling me he had fallen in love, my heart leapt. He said her name was Isabel. She was French, an architect, beautiful, intelligent, and full of charm. He proposed while in Paris, and she said yes. He wanted me to meet her immediately at a French restaurant just a few streets from where I lived. For the first time in years, I felt young again. I thought, maybe my prayers have been answered. Maybe God is giving me a daughter I never had. I chose my blue dress, the one Martin always loved, and clasped my pearls. As I looked in the mirror, I whispered a prayer, Lord, let this woman be good for my son. Let her love him as he deserves to be loved. I stepped out that night not knowing the storm waiting for me. When I arrived, David's face shone with happiness. His smile reminded me of his boyhood, when he brought home trophies from school, eager for me to clap the loudest. At that moment, seeing him so full of love, I silently thanked God. Then she walked in. Isabel. She moved with the confidence of a woman who knew every eye was on her. Her dress was crimson, her hair tied neatly back, her English polished and warm. You must be Mama Rose, she said, her hand reaching for mine. Her grip was firm, her smile dazzling. I thought to myself, this must be the woman my son adores. For a while, the evening felt pleasant. We talked, we laughed, and I began to imagine holidays filled with family again, laughter echoing through my quiet apartment. Isabel's parents joined us, speaking in broken English, and I smiled politely. I thought, perhaps my son has found a family who will cherish him as much as I do. But sometimes joy disguises danger. Sometimes a sweet smile hides teeth sharp enough to wound. As the meal continued, Isabel leaned toward her parents and began speaking rapidly in French. She thought I wouldn't understand. She believed I was just an old American woman who could barely keep up with the conversation. But my father had been a diplomat in Paris when I was a girl. I attended French schools, lived among French neighbors, and spoke the language as fluently as I spoke English. It had been years since I used it, but every word that left her mouth cut into me like glass. She spoke of me, mocking my dress, mocking my life. Her mother called me a simple American cliché. And then Isabel lowered her voice, her eyes glinting with calculation, and said the words that froze my blood. That fool's son is my golden ticket. I'll wed him, then strip him of every dime. I smiled through it. My hands trembled under the table, but I smiled. My son laughed, unaware, while the woman he thought was his future promised his destruction in a language she assumed I could not understand. I left that dinner with my heart heavy, but my resolve even heavier. They believed I was weak, harmless, invisible. But they forgot one truth. A mother does not fade quietly when her child is in danger. Before I go further, allow me to pause. To you watching my story right now, may you be blessed with children who honor and love you in your old age. May your body be strong, your mind clear, and your nights free of loneliness. For those in their 60s, 70s, or 80s who may feel unseen, I pray you find joy again, and that your sacrifices never go unnoticed. And if you're just tuning into this channel, please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from, so that you never miss the lessons hidden in these tales, because what I uncovered after that dinner would change everything. The restaurant David chose was one of those quiet, elegant French places tucked into a side street. The kind of place where the lights are dim, the tables are close, and the air carries the scent of butter, garlic, and wine. He had made a reservation, and as we were shown to our table, I noticed how carefully he straightened his tie and how often he checked his watch. My son, always confident in business meetings, was nervous. nervous because this dinner mattered to him. I reached for his hand and gave it a small squeeze. "Relax, sweetheart," I whispered. "She already loves you." His smile was boyish, grateful, and in that moment I thought I would do anything to protect this happiness. And then she arrived. Isabel. She entered the restaurant as though it were her stage. Heads turned, conversations hushed, and even the waiters paused in their stride. Her dress was deep crimson, flowing, almost glowing in the low light. Her dark hair was pulled back into a bun so neat it seemed sculpted, and her eyes sparkled with a confidence that filled the room. My son's jaw nearly dropped, and I couldn't blame him. She was breathtaking. She leaned forward with a dazzling smile and extended her hand. "You must be Mama Rose," she said in perfect English, her accent soft and melodic. Her hand was warm, her grip strong. "David has told me so much about you. It is such a joy to finally meet." Her words were honey smooth and practiced, but sweet enough to make me let my guard down for a moment. David beamed at us both, his eyes moving between us with hope, as though he were already imagining future Thanksgivings, Christmases, birthdays, all of us together. For his sake, I returned her smile and let her charm flow over me. She spoke with ease, telling me about her work as an architect in Paris, about her love for Boston's historic streets, about how grateful she was for David's kindness. She laughed lightly, tilting her head just enough to look enchanting without appearing rehearsed. If I hadn't lived long enough to know that charm can sometimes be the mask of something darker, I might have believed every word. For nearly an hour, the dinner went smoothly. We ordered wine, we shared bread, we traded stories. Isabel was flawless in English, warm and articulate, carrying herself with grace. I thought to myself, perhaps this could work. Perhaps this woman really could be a daughter to me. Then her parents arrived. Monsieur and Madame Dubois. Older, refined, and distant. Their smiles were polite but cool, the kind of smiles people wear when they believe they are superior but don't wish to offend. Their English was broken, and they relied on Isabel to translate. Still, we managed. We talked about Boston's weather, the beauty of Paris, and David's promising career. I lifted my glass of wine, silently thanking God for this moment of peace. But peace has a way of shattering when you least expect it. Isabel leaned toward her parents, lowered her voice, and spoke in rapid French. She turned her head slightly, smiling at me with lips closed, as if to apologize for excluding me. But she didn't know my secret. My father had been stationed in Paris when I was a girl. I spent 3 years attending a French high school, reading French novels, singing French hymns. The language is stitched into me, as natural as breathing. Over the years, I rarely used it, not with Martin who spoke only English, and not with David who never needed to know. Isabel thought she was safe. She thought I was deaf to her words. She could not have been more wrong. Her mother's voice came first. "She seems so simple," she said, glancing at me with thinly veiled disdain. "A woman who has lived a quiet little life. Nothing to fear." Isabel replied, her tone cold. "Exactly as I told you. A provincial woman in an old dress. She is harmless. She will never be a problem." I held my smile steady, nodding at whatever English word they sprinkled into the conversation, pretending I understood nothing. But inside me, my chest was burning. They went on to speak of David, his job, his firm, his income. They discussed the wedding not as a celebration, but as a transaction. Every word felt like acid dripping on my heart. And then Isabel said the words that would replay in my mind for weeks to come. She looked at her parents, then at David, who was busy laughing at something her father had attempted in broken English, and in perfect French she declared, "That fool son is my golden ticket. We will wed, and I will strip him of every dime. We will be set for life." My fork froze in my hand. My smile turned stiff, like a mask glued to my face. My hands trembled under the table, and my heart raced so fast I thought it might burst. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slam my hands on the table, to tell David the truth, to tear off that crimson dress and show her for what she truly was. But a voice inside whispered, "Not yet. Be patient. Let her think you are blind. Let her think you are weak. It will be your strength." So I smiled. I nodded. I even laughed politely at her father's awkward English jokes. I swallowed my rage with sips of wine. I played the role of the sweet, harmless old mother, all while the woman across from me had declared war. When the dinner ended, David kissed my cheek and thanked me for coming. Isabel hugged me, her perfume cloying, her smile too wide. "It was such a pleasure to meet you," she said warmly. I smiled back, but my heart was steel. The taxi ride home was a blur. Boston's lights streaked by the window as tears stung my eyes. The driver asked if I had enjoyed the evening. I nodded, unable to speak. Inside me, grief was turning into something sharper. For 3 years since Martin's death, I had been quiet, gentle, fading into the background of life. But as I sat in that taxi, Isabel's words echoing in my ears, something inside me woke up. I was no fool. I was a mother. And mothers, no matter how old, do not stand by while their children are preyed upon. Before I continue, let me pause here and ask you, have you ever smiled at someone's face all while knowing they carried poison in their words? Have you ever watched a person act sweet, only to reveal their true self in whispers they thought you could not hear? If you have, tell me in the comments. And if you believe hidden cruelty should always be exposed, give this story a like so others may learn from it. That night, as the taxi carried me back to my small apartment, I made a vow. They thought I was simple. They thought I was harmless. But they were wrong. The morning after that dinner, I woke up with swollen eyes and a heavy chest. I sat by the window with my tea, watching the city slowly come alive. For years, my mornings had been quiet, filled with simple routines. Tea, the newspaper, a crossword. But that day was different. The taste of betrayal lingered like a bitter medicine I couldn't swallow. I knew Isabel had no idea I understood her. To her, I was just a harmless, aging woman who would never suspect a thing. That thought gave me power. If she saw me as fragile, then fragile is what I would let her see. When David called, his voice carried the joy of a man in love. "Mom, wasn't she wonderful? Isabel told me she felt so welcomed by you. She said she can't wait to spend more time together." I forced a smile into my voice. "She's a lovely girl, David. You've chosen well." Each word felt like a knife in my throat, but I knew confronting him now would be useless. Love blinds. If I accused Isabel without proof, David would only think I was jealous, bitter, or worse, losing my mind. No. If I wanted to protect him, I needed evidence. A week later, Isabel called me herself. Her voice was sweet as honey. "Mama Rose, I would love to have tea with you. Just the two of us. I want to know you better." I agreed. When she arrived, she was all charm again, flowers in one hand, a box of French pastries in the other. She kissed my cheek lightly, her perfume filling the room, and sat gracefully on the armchair Martin once favored. Her eyes wandered around my apartment. They lingered on the worn rug, the chipped teapot, the stack of old photo albums on the side table. A flicker crossed her face, something between pity and disdain, before she caught herself and smiled. We sipped tea and nibbled at the pastries. She spoke about her architectural work in Paris, about her prestigious family firm. Her words were polished, but her eyes gave her away. She wasn't truly interested in me. She was scanning my life like a surveyor, measuring what little I had. At one point, I mentioned my arthritis, how opening jars had become harder for me. She smiled politely, but her gaze shifted as if she were bored. In that moment, I realized she saw me as nothing but a weak old woman standing in her way. She had no idea I had already begun preparing for war. That evening, after she left, I sat at my small desk and opened the old laptop David had given me years ago. My fingers ached as I typed her name into the search bar. I wasn't skilled with technology. My hands moved slowly, my memory wasn't sharp, and the internet often felt like a maze with no exit. But I told myself, you're not too old to learn, Rose. Not when your son's future is at stake. The first searches brought nothing useful, just random names, countless Isabels, and firms I couldn't connect to her. I tried her parents' names next. Again, endless results that led nowhere. Frustration washed over me. I nearly slammed the laptop shut, but something Martin used to say whispered back to me. The truth is often hidden where people least expect it. Look not for what they claim to be, but for what they are not. So I changed my approach. I searched for Paris architecture schools, lists of alumni, photos of graduates. No trace of her. If she had studied where she claimed, her name should have been there. But it wasn't. The pit in my stomach grew. She wasn't just a gold digger. She was a liar, carefully weaving a false history. I pressed on, my eyes straining against the screen, my hands trembling on the trackpad. Hours passed. My tea grew cold. The apartment, usually quiet and comforting, now felt like a command center for a battle I had never imagined I'd fight at this age. And then I found it. Buried in a small French blog, there was a story about an art gallery scam that had been shut down years ago. The details were brief, but one of the names jumped out at me. It wasn't Isabel's, but it was her mother's maiden name. My breath caught. I leaned closer, my heart racing. I dug deeper, cross-referencing that name with smaller European reports. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Minor frauds, schemes, cons. Always just enough to avoid prison, but enough to stain a reputation. Still, I needed more. Late into the night, I stumbled on a grainy photograph in an article about passport fraud. The names were different, but the faces told the truth. There she was, Isabel, standing beside a man who was clearly not her father, posing with a group of known fraudsters. She looked younger, harder, but it was her. Without question, it was her. My hand covered my mouth. My heart pounded so loud I thought the neighbors might hear. This wasn't just a greedy young woman hoping to marry into money. This was a professional con artist. My son wasn't marrying a wife. He was marrying into a crime family. For a long time, I sat frozen, staring at the screen. Fear washed through me, but so did a strange rush of clarity. I had spent years shrinking into the background, accepting my place as a quiet widow. But now, my blood was alive with purpose. I whispered to myself, "You thought I was harmless, Isabel, but you are wrong." I knew then I had no choice. I could not confront her yet. She would deny everything, spin more lies, and David, blinded by love, would believe her. No, I had to go deeper. I had to gather proof so strong that even David's heart couldn't dismiss it. This was no longer just about protecting his money. It was about his safety, his entire future. Honey, let me ask you this. Do you think age is a weakness, or can it be the sharpest weapon in a fight like this? Tell me in the comments, because I believe sometimes life saves its fiercest battles for when people least expect us to be strong. After days of poring over articles and photographs, my head felt heavy and my eyes burned, but I knew the evidence I had wasn't enough. A grainy picture and scattered reports could be explained away as coincidence. David needed undeniable proof, documents, plans, something so clear that even love couldn't blind him to it. That was when I remembered something Isabel had said during our tea. She complained about her building's security fob, laughing as she described how it never worked on the first try. At the time, I had nodded politely, but now those words echoed in my mind. If she struggled with her keys, she likely carried them everywhere. And if she carried her keys, perhaps she carried other things as well. The idea frightened me. I was no spy, no thief. I was a 67-year-old widow with shaky hands and stiff joints. Yet if I wanted to save David, I needed to take risks. So I called her. My voice was warm, almost giddy, as I suggested we spend a girls' day together. Shopping, maybe lunch afterward, I said, as though I were simply trying to bond with her. She agreed immediately, her tone cheerful but just a little too triumphant, as if she believed I had accepted her fully. When the day came, I met her at her sleek apartment building. She emerged in a designer outfit, every detail polished to perfection. She looked at me with her fixed smile, but her eyes revealed the boredom of a young woman tolerating an old one. We walked down Newbury Street, her heels clicking against the pavement, her perfume leaving a trail behind her. I let her chatter about fashion and travel while I played the part of the doting, slightly slow mother-in-law. Every detail was part of my disguise. At lunch, she ordered an elaborate cocktail and a salad she hardly touched. I ordered a simple cup of tea. My hands trembled slightly as I stirred it, not entirely from arthritis this time. My plan needed precision. I whispered a silent prayer and then tipped the tea bag ever so carefully onto her purse. Oh my heavens, I am so clumsy. I cried, my voice full of panic. Let me clean it for you, dear. She reached for napkins, annoyed but polite. I fussed over the purse, my hands shaking, until I managed to tip it just enough that it slid from the chair to the floor. Its contents spilled out: a wallet, lipstick, compact, and most importantly, a small black USB drive attached to her keys. Oh dear, I exclaimed, my cheeks flushing as though from embarrassment. I'm hopeless today. We both scrambled to pick up the items. As she focused on her broken lipstick, I slipped the USB into my sleeve. My heart thundered in my chest, but my face remained apologetic, my smile harmless. Don't worry, Mama Rose, she said with that tight smile. It happens. She had no idea what had just happened. Back in my apartment, I sat at my desk with the USB in my hand. My fingers shook as I plugged it into my laptop. A folder appeared, labeled Work. I opened it. Architectural drawings filled the screen. Floor plans, elevations, sketches. At first glance, it looked legitimate. But as I clicked through, something felt off. The designs weren't detailed enough for a professional firm. They looked copied, generic. Then I saw it, a hidden folder buried within the others, locked with a password. My pulse quickened. This was what I needed. I typed in guesses: Isabel's name, her parents' names, David's birthday. Each time, the rejection stung. My hands grew sweaty, my chest tight. What if I couldn't open it? What if I had risked everything only to fail? I sat back, defeated. My eyes wandered to the photograph I had pinned above my desk, the grainy image of Isabel with the fraudsters. Below it, I had written the date of the art gallery scam mentioned in the blog. My hands trembled as I typed in that date. The folder opened. Inside was everything: forged diplomas, fake certificates, identity documents, and most damning of all, letters in French to her parents. I clicked through them, my heart pounding harder with each one. The letters detailed every step of her plan: how she had targeted David, how she intended to drain his accounts, how she would funnel money back to Europe. She wrote of me too. The old woman is simple, one letter said. She will never suspect. She will be the easiest part of this. Tears filled my eyes, but they were not tears of despair. They were tears of anger, of resolve. There was the proof. Not just suspicion, not just fear, but truth written in her own words. I copied every file onto my laptop, my hands moving with surprising steadiness. For once, my age felt like an advantage. She thought I was too old, too weak, too naive. She never imagined I would be the one to uncover her entire scheme. With the USB in my drawer, I sat in silence. Part of me wanted to storm into David's office that very moment, slam the files on his desk, and shout the truth. But I knew my son. His love for Isabel was strong, and strong love resists even the sharpest truth at first. If I confronted her now, she might spin another lie. David might believe her, and then I would lose him. No. I needed to wait. I needed to plan. I stared at Martin's photograph. I am no soldier, I whispered. But tonight, I feel like a general preparing for war. The thought steadied me. I had evidence, and now I had a strategy. Isabel believed she had fooled me, but soon she would learn what it meant to underestimate a mother's love. The night I chose for the dinner, I set my small apartment with as much care as if it were a holiday feast. I roasted chicken with herbs, laid out fresh bread, and set the table with the china Martin and I had received as a wedding gift decades earlier. Everything had to feel warm, safe, and ordinary. David arrived first, carrying a bottle of wine, his face glowing with happiness. Isabel followed soon after, dressed in a black cocktail dress that looked more suited for a ballroom than my living room. She swept into the apartment with her usual grace, her smile dazzling. "Your home is so charming, Mama Rose," she said, her voice soft and sweet. Her eyes, though, flicked to the chipped frames on the wall, the faded carpet, the worn sofa. She didn't see charm. She saw smallness. David kissed my cheek and whispered, "Mom, thank you for doing this. It means so much to me." I kissed his hand and said, For you, sweetheart, anything. We sat at the table, and the meal began. Isabel spoke in her polished English, telling stories of Paris, praising David's accomplishments, pretending to admire the home-cooked meal. David laughed often, his eyes glowing with pride. But I wasn't listening to her words. I was watching her. The way she glanced at David's watch, the way her smile sharpened when she spoke of his work, the way she measured everything in value. And all the while, my laptop rested quietly on a chair beside me, its screen already open to the folder of files I had copied. When the plates were nearly cleared, David stood to take them to the sink. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I looked straight at Isabel. My smile was gentle, but my eyes were steel. C'est un beau rêve, n'est-ce pas? I said softly, my French accent flawless. It's a beautiful dream, isn't it? Her fork clattered against her plate. Her head snapped up, and her eyes widened with pure shock. Un ticket d'or, I continued, my tone calm, deliberate. A golden ticket. Pour que vous puissiez le dépouiller de chaque centime. So you can strip him of every dime. The color drained from her face. Her perfect facade cracked. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She was frozen, caught like a thief with her hand in the till. Didn't expect that, did you? I whispered in French, my smile never fading. David returned, carrying the plates, and looked at us curiously. What are you two talking about? Just girl talk, I said lightly in English. Then I gestured toward the laptop. David, sit down. There's something you need to see. He frowned, sensing the gravity in my voice, and placed the plates back on the table. He sat, his eyes moving from me to Isabel, confused. With steady hands, I turned the laptop toward him. The folder glowed on the screen. I clicked through the files, fake diplomas, forged certificates, financial blueprints of his accounts labeled asset liquidation, letters in French detailing every step of Isabel's plan. David leaned forward, his brow furrowed. What is this? It's what she's been planning for you, I said, my voice steady. She never studied architecture. She never worked for the firm she claims. These letters are to her parents. She's been planning this for more than a year. His eyes darted across the screen, confusion shifting into disbelief, then into dawning horror. No, that can't be, he whispered. He turned to Isabel, his voice breaking. Tell me this isn't true. Isabel's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She reached for him, her eyes glistening with tears that were as false as every story she had told. David, mon amour. Enough, I snapped, my voice sharp as a blade. I clicked on a letter, highlighted a line, and translated it aloud. The old woman is so simple. She will be the easiest part of the con. That's what she wrote about me. David recoiled as though struck. His face, once so full of love for her, collapsed into devastation. Isabel began to stammer excuses, her French accent heavier now. It's not what you think. These are old. I was forced. Stop. David's voice was flat, broken. His hands shook as he shoved his chair back. Get out. She froze, stunned. I said get out, he roared, his voice shattering the stillness of the apartment. Isabel's mask finally shattered. She grabbed her purse, her hair falling loose from its perfect bun, and stumbled toward the door. For the first time since I met her, she looked ordinary, small, desperate, and stripped of power. She turned to me, her eyes filled with fury. But I met her gaze calmly and spoke the words I had been holding on to since that dinner at Lardwas. I loved meeting you all, I said in French, my voice cold as ice. I bet immigration will too. Her face twisted in terror. She fled, slamming the door behind her. The apartment was silent, save for the sound of David's ragged breathing. He sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Mom, he whispered, his voice shaking. How did you know? I laid a hand on his back. Because I listened. Because I paid attention. And because I refused to let anyone destroy you. He lifted his head, his eyes red. I loved her. I thought she was, his voice broke. I squeezed his hand. She fooled you. But you're safe now. That's what matters. For a long time we sat in silence. He stared at the files, his body trembling with the weight of betrayal. And I sat beside him, No longer the quiet widow he thought needed protection, but the mother who had just saved his future. Sometimes justice doesn't come from courts or police. Sometimes justice comes from a mother's love, from the courage to act when no one else sees the danger. Tonight, justice was served at my dining table. And to every person watching, I pray this for you. May your children never fall into the hands of deceivers. May your age never make you invisible. May your strength surprise even you when the time comes. That night, after Isabel fled, the apartment felt heavier than ever. The roasted chicken sat half-eaten, the bread untouched, the wine untouched. Only silence remained, thick, unyielding silence. David sat at the table, staring into nothing. His hands were clenched together as though he was holding himself from breaking apart. My son, who had faced boardrooms and clients with confidence, now looked like a little boy lost in the storm of his first heartbreak. "Mom," he whispered finally, his voice raw, "I don't understand how I could have been so blind. I thought she loved me. I was ready to give her everything." I reached for his hand. "Love can blind even the wisest, David. It makes us hear music where there is only noise. But a mother's eyes, they see differently. I saw not because I am cleverer than you, but because God gave me the heart of a guardian. And when a guardian senses danger, she cannot stay quiet." He buried his face in his palms. "I feel so ashamed." I leaned closer, stroking his hair like I had when he was a child. "Don't carry shame. Carry wisdom. You've learned something most men don't learn until much later, that not every smile is sincere, and not every hand that reaches for you wants to hold you. Some reach only to take." Tears welled in his eyes, but gratitude softened them. "You saved me, Mom." I squeezed his hand. "No, David. Love saved you. A mother's love." When the night grew late and David finally left, I sat alone in my chair. For years, I had felt diminished by age, dismissed as fragile. People saw a widow who filled her days with puzzles and tea. They never saw the woman who once traveled, who once spoke fluent French, who carried knowledge in silence. That night proved something to me. Age does not weaken us. It sharpens us. Every wrinkle holds memory. Every ache carries a story. Every quiet moment hides a reservoir of strength waiting for its test. Isabel believed I was too old to notice. She believed my silence meant weakness. But silence can be the deadliest weapon when paired with patience. I whispered to myself, "Martin, I did it. I kept our boy safe." And in the stillness of that room, I felt my husband's spirit nod in approval. Here is the truth I carry now, and the truth I want you, my dear listener, to remember. Love blinds. It blinds good men, good women, young hearts eager for connection. But mothers see what others overlook. A mother's wisdom is sharper than youth's passion, and her intuition is a shield stronger than steel. If you are blessed with a mother, honor her, for she sees dangers you cannot. And if you are a mother or grandmother listening now, never underestimate the power still within you. Even in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, you can protect, guide, and save. Before I close my story, let me pray for you. May your children walk in truth, honoring the sacrifices you've made for them. May no deceiver ever come near their hearts or their homes. For those of you in your later years who feel forgotten or betrayed, may healing flow into your days. May loneliness give way to companionship, and may your wisdom shine like a light for your families. And for all watching, may you never be deceived by false love, and may your eyes always see clearly when hearts around you are blind. If this story touched you, I invite you to like this video, share it with others who may need its lesson, and subscribe so you never miss the next tale. In the comments, tell me, have you ever seen someone's true face when they thought you weren't watching? Your story may help another soul. Remember, here in this channel, every voice matters, every heart matters, and every story carries a lesson.